Absolutely.
I guess the last time we started, we talked about home safety. This time we're going to talk about caring for the caregiver. It's an important topic. In our experience, we've seen situations where the caregiver will engulf their lives in the care of a loved one to the point where it becomes an unhealthy situation. And we want to try to emphasize to people that when caring for a loved one, while also trying to balance a busy lifestyle, a career, children, other activities that may be important to them, caring for a loved one can be a very trying and difficult time. And this is designed to help you with some tips and help you identify areas where you may be getting into a situation, or you may know somebody who's caring for a loved one, getting into situations where they may need some outside help. I think the best way to describe the gist of what we're going to talk about today is don't be afraid to ask for help when caring for a loved one. And oftentimes people don't want to be in imposition, or they may get resistance from family members who aren't doing their share or could be doing more. And it goes back to the old analogy: every time we get on a flight, the flight attendant gets up there, and the first thing she tells us is, if you're traveling with young children or dependents, the first thing you need to do is put the mask on yourself so that you can then aid somebody else effectively. So that is pretty much what we're going to talk about today. And in getting started, we want to talk about, if you turn to page 3 in the module, the principles of home care. And basically it talks about, first and foremost, when providing care for somebody, you want to make sure that yourself and the environment that you're working in is a safe one. Again, and that could have anything to do with having the proper bed for a loved one to be in, having the proper equipment in the shower, having those sort of things in place. But it's also making sure that the caregiver is also, if there are special needs and special maneuvers that a loved one needs to make, that the caregiver is adequately trained on how to do those things. Okay, the next one is privacy. And we want to make sure that the privacy of the cared for is being respected, and when private things are being discussed about the cared for, that they don't fall on ears that they shouldn't be falling on. Their business is private, and it's your job as a caregiver to make sure that continues to happen, and not necessarily have private conversations in earshot of others that really is none of their business. Now, the next one is dignity, and I want you to take special note, because this is our topic for today, is that it's respect yourself in the process of taking care of somebody else. It's of course to respect the dignity of the one that's being cared for, but also your dignity. Your needs need to be taken care of, going back to having your oxygen mask on and making sure that you're breathing properly and healthy so that you can help somebody else. Communication is key. I don't know if I have to stress that too much, but whenever there's a communications breakdown, regardless of whether it's in a situation of caring for a loved one or in life in general, communication is key. And when you don't have it, misunderstandings and complications can evolve. Independence. You want to encourage a loved one who is going through the aging process to do as much as they can for themselves without going overboard. But at the same time, as a caregiver, you don't want to take away any independence that they may have in the process of aging. But encourage them to do what they can for themselves and support them along the way. And then finally, infection control. Anytime working with a loved one, even if it's a family member, the best way to prevent infections and transmitting germs and disease is to wear gloves. Even though it may seem a little bit not as intimate. You're protecting yourself. You're protecting the health of the one that you're caring for. Gloves is important. Obviously, knowing what medications or special devices you may be using in the care of somebody, knowing the proper way to use it is also important as well. But, so that is just a quick summary of the principles of caregiving. Does anybody have anything to share or comment on before I move forward? Okay. This is, I do want to run this as an open open session. As we progress forward, you will see that this is going to be, there's going to be interaction amongst us as we move forward. What I'm going to ask you is that how many people in this room right now are actively caring for somebody at home? Or actively caring for somebody in any situation? Okay. And what is it that you find most challenging about your role as the caregiver?
Our circumstances are that there are 3 adult siblings who have a parent in a facility in skilled nursing, and another has Alzheimer's and other issues. There are certain pieces of her care that we take care of, and certain pieces that the staff takes care of.
Sure.
One of the issues that we're finding is the lack of communication, because even though there are full-time staff, there are also permanent part-time folks. And when they switch, left hand doesn't know what the right hand's doing. So we can't always get the information we need. So if you have a loved one in a facility and there are those issues, being a presence on any shift is really critical, so that they can get to know you, so that there's a comfort level. They get to know the family, and they connect our faces with the individual.
Okay.
And we find that sometimes they're just too busy. So we work with each other, and we text.
You work with other
my
family
brother
members?
and sister and I work with each other. Who's like, I went to see Mom last night and took certain things, and then I'll just update my brother and sister. So no one is doing double duty at the grocery store or with things that we take care of. I take care of pull-ups, my sister takes care of Medicare, and my brother takes care of, everybody's kind of carved up. Okay, so
you as family members and as family members sharing, the responsibility and caring for your loved one, you're communicating with each other. But you're getting difficulty from the community?
They're not difficult, it's just that the head nurse changes either by the day or by the week. There's plenty of staff there, but sometimes I don't know who I'm calling. And when the first shift ends, sometimes the second shift at 3 or 3:30 doesn't get a message. And then they don't know we're coming and maybe taking her to day. It seems to be, to me, kind of the nature of what it is, because they are all taking care of several people on 2 floors, and it's a lot of beds and a lot of rooms, and I just don't know that they can do it all. So once we passed that frustration level, we just decided, don't worry about whether they, we decided it was on us to shift so that we're not emotionally frustrated. That can make you tired.
Absolutely.
I know how they're taking care of Mom, because the laundry's done, the meds are done, the doctors always are. There are certain really critical pieces that only they can do. So you have to decide, is your glass half full or is it half empty? And then you deal. It really helps your own emotions not to set the bar so high for caregivers who are only doing their best. And it's not like it's an illegal thing. It's just, you just need to talk.
You're giving great advice in what you're doing amongst your siblings.
Some people come in and they'll blast a nurse. You just can't do that.
You absolutely cannot.
You cannot do that.
It's the same thing in the restaurant with your food, right? Don't be
That's
doing
right.
that.
Don't scream at the
We employ caregivers as well, and what we find is a lot of caregivers will come to us from a skilled nursing or assisted living environment. And one of the number one things that they tell us is that we really want to work in a one-on-one situation, because in a skilled or assisted environment, they're assigned multiple people. They're expected to meet certain criteria through certain times, and Mrs. Smith may be having a bad day today and need a little bit of extra help, but that doesn't factor into, oh, but you've got to cover all these other clients.
And you have to decide what's important.
The other thing that we find is that you hit the nail on the head. If you come out and you're guns blazing,
They're going
towards
to
staff
remember how you
members,
treated them.
they're going to remember that, and they're going to do what they're supposed to do, nothing more, nothing less, but you don't get the special treatment. It's better to show compassion, understanding, and ways that you can assist. The other thing is, oftentimes amongst that care team that your loved one is seeing every day, there is somebody that if you can try to find out who this person is just through getting to know the care staff, there's somebody that's going to wave a flag for your loved one. They're going to take a personal stock, and if you can develop that relationship, that can go a long way in the community as well. They'll be your eyes and ears when you're not there, and they will be your person, your go-to person. And so that's what we found as well. Either of you find any challenges that you'd like to share with us as caregivers?
Well, right now, my mother's been living with us since 2004. But more and more she's getting needy, really needy. And for me, I only really have to help her in the evenings and then on the weekends, because my husband is there the other times. And he is strong enough to handle her. I find myself getting hurt physically because of what I have to do for her.
Sure.
And I'm not sure how to get around that. I mean, a lot of it's, I had tendonitis in this arm, which I never had before. I just got that last week. And I'm sure I know what it's from. It's like the lifting.
Sure.
So, I don't know.
Yeah, that's the thing, and I'm sure that, once you're providing respite for your husband, he needs that time off, and he's saying, come on, help me. He's kind of like, wait a minute, I've done my job, it's your turn.
Well, he's willing, but many times I just go ahead and do it. And then after the fact, I'm thinking, ouch.
Well, then there again, this is where that mask analogy comes in again. Maybe for the couple of minutes that you may, ask your husband to help you. If you wear yourself out long enough, you're not going to be able to provide that care at all. So again, it's one of those things where, and we'll talk about this, a caregiver oftentimes is reluctant because they don't want to be in imposition, but at the same time, that's where injuries it can start to happen. And so, for that 2 minutes where you don't want to inconvenience, if your husband is a willing person, it sounds like he is, he sounds like he's doing a very good job, ask for that extra help. And it will extend your shelf life in terms of being able to lift and move and that sort of thing. So don't be afraid to ask. Do you have anything you'd like to share?
Well, my mom is in assisted living, but she's out of town. And so I have my brother lives nearby, but doesn't visit her frequently. So I make regular trips down to visit, talk to her every day, and I try to get a good sense of, I know her so well, I can tell when I hear her voice over the phone, I can tell if it's a good day or a bad day. And it's just the interfacing pretty much with family and deciding, okay, is it time to call family? Is it time to just call the staff directly or what? Just sort of juggling that and feeling like I don't have to, like I go monthly. I definitely go monthly. If she's ill, I go more. And so it just increases on how she's doing it. But just I have that feeling that like I just can't skip a scheduled visit or I'm not allowed. I have to have that commitment. So.
And you said that you have a brother that isn't as active? Or you'd like him to be more active?
Yeah, I'd like him to be more active. He handles the finance part of everything, but I'm more the nurturer and the emotional support for her, and
How close
keep
does
her
he
company.
live?
About 15, 20 minutes away.
Okay, so it's actually an easier visit for him.
It's easier, yeah, for him to stop by. And my sister-in-law will deliver, whatever she needs if she's run out of soap or, those kind of things. But it's like a quick, 15-minute, here's what you need, and she's gone. So it's not a whole lot of emotional support.
Sure, I understand. And how's the interaction with your mother in terms of activities within the community and other community members?
She has a little bit of participation. She's on the quiet, shy side, and
Okay.
she just has very limited activities that she participates in.
Okay.
So.
Well, one way, and again, I know that this is awkward sometimes, is to, in a subtle sort of way, when communicating with your brother, to encourage him to maybe stop by a little bit more frequently, in a subtle way, but at the same time, if you think that would help. Communities are great, and they provide all kinds of activities and that sort of thing, but the community doesn't always replace the touch of a son or a daughter or a loved one.
Yeah.
And that's what I see a lot in communities, is just that, is that even those that are thriving and participating in the communities, there are families that pretty much will go ahead and place a loved one there, and we'll see you Easter, we'll stop by around Christmas time or whatever. And that's kind of a sad situation. Because our loved ones need us. They want us. They talk about us all the time and everything else. So that's what they need. So good. Thank you for sharing that information with us. So again, you're kind of dealing with a little bit of, I'm missing a visit. Again, you're stressed out. I shouldn't say stressed out, but you're stretched by other responsibilities and that sort of thing. If you miss a visit, it's important to get down and see your mom. Maybe you make it up with, an extra visit sometime when you're not as obligated, would be a suggestion. Okay. Moving on. We're going to talk about time savers. If you turn to page 4, again, if you all are in this room and at the university, I'm assuming that you're probably, employed by or do something with the university. Probably have a pretty busy schedule. There you go. Being organized is very important. Understanding and having a well-stocked area if you're caring for a loved one at home is something that you want to try to do, is make sure that you have the supplies that you need to care for a loved one. You know where they are, they're well organized, and you have an ample supply that you're not going to run out of. Is very important. Again, asking for help, getting help, asking a loved one, asking a neighbor. There are other outside of family sources that you can go to. Oftentimes, people's church is a place where they can go to find support in caring for a loved one. We're taking care of clients right now. They're in their 90s. We do have some during the day help with them, but their church has been, really overwhelming. I shouldn't say overwhelming, but the outpouring of support that they've given. They bring over hot meals. They will send somebody to bring this couple to church every Sunday. Oftentimes they'll have somebody from the congregation will spend the afternoon with them. So turning to your church is, if you feel comfortable with asking support from there, you'd be surprised at how much support you really can get from, that source outside of the community. I found it to be, quite a good help. And we'll talk a little bit more about that as we go along. Again, don't try to take on every responsibility yourself. If you need help, for example, ask for it. If you expect too much, or if you take on too much, you're going to potentially hurt yourself or develop resentment or just added stress into your life that you don't necessarily need to. Again, when caring for a loved one, loose-fitting clothes as opposed to button-down sort of things. You use some sort of pants or something that has an elastic waistband that you can get on easily, instead of using clothing with buttons and that sort of thing. A zip-up sort of clothing if you're helping somebody with dressing. Shoes with Velcro as opposed to buckles or laces are all little tips that help you, through some of those activities of daily living that can be difficult. And then your loved one can also help you with those tasks as well, depending on how much need that they have. When it's easier to get clothing on and off with those sort of features, it's a lot easier for you. It's a lot easier for the cared for as well. And if they're helping in the process, it boosts their morale as well, knowing that they are helping in a situation like that. And then, back to if somebody is incontinent, using protection on the mattress and that sort of thing, getting things, if your home is organized and everything is organized, you can get those items cleaned up. And it is important to clean up the incontinence as quickly as possible. Again, part of what we do is we help people place loved ones into assisted living. And one of the biggest things that clients will do, as well as myself, is when looking at an assisted living, we look with our nose. And, you're not looking with your eyes, you're looking with your nose. And that can be the biggest turnoff. I mean, that kind of smell, if care is going on in the home, is a big turnoff as well. So if you can protect those absorbing surfaces that could, keep that smell around and lingering, it's best. So those are some suggestions there. Again, we've talked about it already. Communication is key to success. Knowing. Again, going back to your scenario where we were talking about communicating with the staff at the assisted living community. Again, if you're in that situation, or as well as at home, really communicating with your healthcare professionals, understanding the drugs, the dosages, why somebody's on it, is very important. Oftentimes, I hear people say, well, the doctor prescribed this, but I'm going to modify it. I'm not going to give them 3 times a day. I'm going to try once a day because I don't think mom needs that much. There's a reason why the doctors prescribe that. And when you start taking those matters into your own hands, it could be dangerous with the way other drugs may be affecting somebody that they're prescribed to. So if you have questions, if you think that modification might be necessary, your hunch may not be wrong. A doctor sees many people, but at the same time, communication with the healthcare professional is very important. Hey, I think that this dosage might be a little bit high. Can we try this? And really work with your healthcare professional who is looking over your loved one as well, to make sure that you are on the same page and continue to be on the same page. Caring for a senior is unlike caring for somebody who's healing. Oftentimes the senior is going through a progression and they're moving towards an ultimate moving on, and their circumstances change as this process continues, and so modifications in their medications, modifications in their care plan is eminent. It's going to happen, and oftentimes in our busy lives and our professionals' busy lives, they need you to be their eyes and ears as well. So again, if you have a hunch, bring it up to your care professional, but don't necessarily try to take that responsibility on yourself as the care professional. It's a two-way street. You need to try to work collaboratively with them, and that goes also with your example as well in terms of was it your mom or your dad? Your mother. Talk to the staff in communities where your loved ones are. Open up dialogue. Find that almost indefinitely there's a caregiver. It might be a low-level caregiver that all of a sudden has some sort of affinity with your loved one. It happens. And if you can figure out who that person is, they can be your advocate. And they will. They'll get on the phone with you. They'll have private conversations with you and that sort of thing. And that is important. It's another key to effective communication when caring for loved ones. Does anybody have anything to share in regard to that in terms of their own experiences? We can do this two ways. I put together some scenarios here, and I put together enough that, I put together 6, if we can share these. I'd like to kind of talk about some of these scenarios. Maybe it hits home with some of you, maybe it doesn't. Here's one for you. We can role play if you want, but I think that we can probably also effectively discuss them as well. Scenario 1, the setup is simply that you're a caregiver and you ask your brother, who doesn't offer help, to take care of your mother, to stay with your mother for an hour each Sunday while you're grocery shopping. I don't know if you've come across this or not, but the caregiver would say, "Bob, can you stay with my mom for an hour on Sunday so I can have a little time to myself?" Bob's response is,
No, that is when I'm going golfing and always meet Joe and Tom then.
real life situation happened to us last week. We have a woman who is in final stages of life. She's disappointed her husband her only son has remarried and moved to South Carolina. His ex-wife and his daughter are very active in the care for Mom.
Wonderful.
And we had to recommend that they consider hospice for her mom at this point. So the call went down to Dad, and he's having this discussion, the call went in, Dad, from his daughter, we need to talk, and it's about Mom, and these are some pretty serious matters. And he's like, "Oh, hold on, I've got to tee off." So, these things happen, and the family was really kind of put off by that, and they did ask us to give this gentleman a call, and we did, and tell him the serious nature of what's going on and the serious decisions that we're making. And our caregiver, who was been working with this lady, was able to effectively convince him to get off the golf course, get in his car, drive up here, and address these matters. But nevertheless, it's usually the men, unfortunately, that just don't really take the matter seriously or take them to heart. And I don't know whether it's a defense mechanism or what, but sometimes a little bit of straightforward talk, tough love talk, saying, "Hey, something, you're not hearing me. It's time for you to take charge," because he ultimately has power of attorney decisions and other decision-making capacity that we couldn't, and caregivers couldn't provide the care for his mom that they needed to make the decisions for her. So it is, straightforward talk is usually very helpful. The next one, you care for your husband who has Alzheimer's. Your neighbor Sue has offered several times to stay with your husband while you can run errands, but you haven't agreed because you don't want to inconvenience her. And again, this is a thing that we've seen this happen time and time again. Extreme case, we had a gentleman who was taking care of his wife who suffers from rheumatoid arthritis, really very incapacitated, needed help with every activity of daily living, and he pretty much had given up his life to the care of his wife, to the point where he had no social life, he had nothing, and he was extremely reluctant to rely on outside help. Through a lot of convincing counseling, not just from us, but from other people, we were finally able to let him open up the door to allow somebody to come in and assist him a little bit. It was through an agency providing care, but he was extremely concerned about the abilities of the caregiver, whether they were actually going to be able to help or not. But the fact of the matter is that he did ultimately allow the caregiver to come in, and over really just a few day period, he started to see the benefit and the value of, again, relying on others to help assist you. It's not replacing you. We'll never, we pretty much had to convince him, we're never going to replace you. You have the best interests of your wife in mind, and we're not going to try to say that we don't, and we can't replace you, but at the same time, we need to take some of this burden off your shoulder. It is affecting your health, and it was. Through a lot of convincing, ultimately he did accept care, and things got better. Now, again, his wife was progressing through her challenges, and she ultimately did pass away, but at the same time, if we were able to preserve some of his own dignity, his own ability to have his identity again, or help restore it. Again, when you spend 5 years pretty much devoting your life to the care of somebody else, coming out of that takes a while. I have lost touch with this gentleman, but he's moved away. But nevertheless, I do know that we were able to impact his life. And that's an extreme example of what can happen when somebody starts to shoulder too much responsibility when caring for a loved one. So again, it is, ask your community, ask your neighbors, ask your siblings and family members. They may be reluctant at first, but through some persistence and a little bit of education, they may, family members especially are hard sometimes to soften up, and it's a sensitive subject to talk about, but through persistence, in the right way, you can ultimately get that help that you're looking for from a family member. And if a family member is out of the question, there are other places where you can go. And we'll talk about those a little bit more. So that was scenario 2. Scenario 3. You care for your wife who's recently had a stroke. Ask your son to stay with your wife to go ask your son to stay with your wife while you go to the gym. Caregiver John, unfortunately, my name's John. Would you mind staying with mother while I go work out? And John says, somebody share with me?
But Dad,
Go ahead, you can all say it together if you want.
I am not sure how to take care of her. What if she has a problem? Isn't there somewhere safe she could stay, or someone else better able to take care of her?
I can relate to that because there have been times in my career where I've had to step in for a caregiver in an awkward situation where I wasn't sure of my own abilities, my own ability to take care of somebody. And oftentimes, when asking somebody for help, it's not that they don't want to, they're afraid to make a mistake. And so in that situation, with John, what the dad should do is pretty much lay it out for him. Son, I'm going to be away for a couple of hours. During that time when I'm away, Mom usually naps, for example. And while she's napping, you just kind of need to be here. Heck, you can have the ball game on, but be in earshot, in case Mom might need something. But usually this is the time of day that she's napping. I will have fed her. She would have been bathed. Heck, if she wakes up and she needs to get up, this is how you walk through the process of how you may need to move her or transition her. If she needs the snacks are here. Other circumstances that might happen while I'm away, just walk through it with the person that's stepping in for you and give them, the confidence to be able to step into that role. And you'd be amazed. Somebody, if they're prepped properly and they sit down and do it once, they realize, hey, this isn't too bad, I can help out. And they may be willing to give a little bit more of their time. And so, again, the flip side of that is the caregiver, and I'll use the gentleman that was just sharing with you with his wife and her rheumatoid arthritis. He feared that nobody could do what he does. And we had to convince him that we have trained people that can do what he does. And with a little bit of guidance from him, we can help do what he does and give him the respite that he needs. And so it's a matter of just, in some cases, just walking through the whole process with somebody who's going to be doing some assistance, or on the other side, convincing the caregiver who's afraid to let go of any of the responsibility for fear of something terrible happening, to let them know that, hey, I have somebody, or we have somebody, or I can't do this, let me show you, and we'll get through it from there. So that scenario does come up quite a bit.
Done. Do you have something to add?
One of the things that we've experienced, our dad passed in 2008 and went very quickly.
Okay.
7 of the 8 grandchildren in the family are within driving distance of where our parents were.
Okay.
And there were some days when the 3 of us just needed a break, and we have a family Google email, and we would just send out a note. This is where we are, this is how we feel. Talk amongst yourselves, somebody go see Papa.
Well, did you find that effective?
Yes.
That's
Well,
awesome.
they're all really close.
Yeah.
It's not like anybody's estranged.
Sure.
And I found that as long as we explained to all the children, if you're with Pop-Up and he has an issue, it's okay to buzz the nurse. One of them was in a situation where Dad was a little delirious because the morphine's getting worse. And
Sure.
she thought she could just help him do something, and then realized she couldn't, and did pretty much what you just recently said. She felt like she should have been able to handle the task, and then realized that she couldn't, and felt uncomfortable. But she learned that, you know, that's what the staff is there for. They don't mind that little buzzer going on.
Exactly.
So she did, and it worked out. You just have to let them know, you know, we can't do it all. If you're a grandparent, you know, they know who you are, go see them.
I think I mean, again, technology's allowed us to do that at this point. I mean, nobody is but, you know, a text message or an email away from communication. And I think that what you did with your family is excellent. I mean, that's how we communicate with our caregivers and that sort of thing when emergencies come up. I mean, we send out an email saying, hey, we need help on this case. You know, can you step in? And, you know, you've effectively managed that with your family. And your family's responded. And, you know, in that situation, the more the merrier, because nobody feels obligated, but at the same time, if somebody sees, oh, okay, well, you know, Susan's going to go. I mean, I don't know your family's name, but, you know, Susan's going to go, hey, that's great. Well, it kind of sets up a little bit of a, well, maybe next time I should go sort of thing as well. And so, it shares the responsibility with the family group and not necessarily segmenting 1 or 2 family members. So I never thought about that. So thank you for sharing it. That's an excellent.
There are families that have multiple, particularly if you have maybe 2 or 3 SIBs in each family. Encourage them to go as 2s. It's not so scary.
Oh yeah,
Take somebody with them.
Yeah, that's great. Yeah, that's great. And thank you for sharing that. That's a wonderful idea. Okay. Scenario 4. Your sister doesn't offer to help take care of your father. You want some time to yourself, but you don't want to leave him alone because he's unsteady on his feet. Ask your sister to be more involved in his care, so you can. I guess I cut some of that off. So you can, you know, have some time. Yeah, just go for a walk.
Yeah, that's a happy place. You just put a line in there, and then people go to wherever that wants to be.
Yeah. That's probably intentional, then, actually. Look at actually, that's not. Would you mind helping Dad so I can have some time to myself? And she responds by saying,
I know, sorry, I don't have much time. With working the kids, it's really tough.
tough to help out.
What questions can you recommend? You know, lots of these are statements back and forth. Because a lot of times when you question them, a lot of times they don't realize what they just said and their intention behind that and how that's heard on the other side.
Well, open-ended questions, you know, best way to do it is share empathy. I understand, I'm busy too, and I really, I'm not sure. Do you have any time within the next couple of days or the next week where you can help me out? Kind of reiterate that again, but reiterate it by sharing empathy first. Like, hey, yeah, I know you're busy, and I don't mean to necessarily position you, but I'm really I'm shouldering a heavy load right now. I need some time off. The other thing is to share with without scaring them into not wanting to come and provide care. Just say, hey, look, I've been with Mom for the last week and a half, and I really need to get to the bank, or I really need to get to whatever it may be, and let them know that you're busy too, and you're busy with Mom, but and you need a break as well. Ask again. And don't be afraid to, because the first time around, again, it goes into maybe they're really not that busy, but they just don't know how to care for Mom. And so another question you can ask is, do you really know all the things that I'm doing for Mom right now? Ask that question. Well, you're caring for her. Well, I know I'm caring for her, but do you know that Mom needs this? Do you know that Mom? I didn't know that. She needs what? Oh yeah, she needs this, and this has happened lately. It has, and when you start to kind of reiterate that, that can tug at a little bit of a light bulb going off. Like, okay, gotcha. You need more help. Are you aware of what we're doing with Mom right now? Are you aware of what we're doing with Dad? Did you know that his medication has changed? Do you know that he's had this diagnosis? Those sort of things, because again, people will, the family member who's not active, there's a guilt that goes on sometimes in people, and so they'll kind of intentionally sort of distance themselves from it. And if you can help bring them back into reality by, like you said, asking questions, but also sharing with them, this is the day to day. This is what we go through, and heck, I need a break, and I'd really, like it if you can just, give me a couple of hours, and it doesn't have to be tomorrow, but, the next couple of days or something, or the other thing is you can kind of build towards an event. I have this going on, I have this social event, or I have this obligation that I need to attend to. It's very important to me. Can you help out? That sort of thing.
We have, our oldest daughter is the most loving and caring person you'd ever want to meet on the face of the earth. But I think she's a little bit afraid because my daughter lives with us. And my mother lives with us. Mm-hmm. And she, the kids come over, the grandkids come over, and they see day by day how really hard it is to take care. And we recently had we had someone lined up so that we could go on a vacation, and found out, not last minute, but sort of that they couldn't come. And of course we felt like, oh no, so I called my daughter right away, because it's going to be in the summertime.
Sure.
And she's a teacher. I said, would you be able to come over? And it got silent. And that's not her. I expect her to say, oh sure, Mom, we can do this. She has 4 kids of her own. And so I said, are you okay? And she said, I can't imagine me doing what you and Dad do. I can't imagine that I would be able to do all that you do. And it was just that. It was the fear of jumping into that situation. And I can understand that. It would be an awesome thing just to walk into.
Sure.
But I said, you can come, you can shadow us and see what we do. We have lists, we have all this, and we said we have one of our other sons on call if she needed help.
Sure.
So we alerted him, to be on call. And so she's on board now, but, it was just not that she wasn't wanting to do it. It was just the fear.
Her fear. And that's another great thing, is to have, you're asking somebody for a primary respite sort of situation, to let them know, there is somebody else that can come in and help you if they are reluctant or, not confident in their own abilities.
And that's good training too, because I can see some people saying, "Oh, just come and see it." So when we're in that situation, you'll have it down pat, right? Because I could see my mother saying something like that. I'm like, "Yeah, no, that doesn't sell it." It is. It's the persuasion. I think persuasion. You have to have those skills too, not just information, but the skills of persuasion. Yeah.
The other thing that often gets overlooked, and something that you can use as a enticer or a easer in that individual that's reluctant, is if you've ever taken care of a loved one, you know that of course there's med reminders, there's bathing, there's dressing, there's meal prep, there's errands, there's laundry that needs to be done, there's keeping their area tidy, all of those things you have to do. But over the course of a day or a few hours of caring for somebody, that probably encompasses maybe half of what you actually do with somebody. The other time is idle time, and it's companionship, and that's another way that you can kind of show somebody that, hey, you're going to be spending time with grandma. She really would love to see you. She'd like to reminisce a little bit. She loves telling the stories about when she was a girl, or when she was raising me, or that sort of thing. The companionship component can also be kind of an icebreaker. Is, yeah, you're going to have to help grandma or dad or whomever with these things, but you're going to end up spending some quality time, and usually some good time, with your loved one, and hopefully you have a few laughs along the way, and that sort of thing, and it happens. I mean, that's truly the bond that happens in a caregiving relationship, the positive bond. I mean, certainly you wish that your loved one could do all those things for themselves, but they can't. But when they can, you don't always get a chance to have those quality moments with that loved one and just sit there and reminisce, because you're trying to go in two different directions. And so oftentimes that's a big plus to the whole caregiving experience. So, I did read scenario number 5. If somebody would like to share, this is a great discussion we're having. And we are approaching towards the end. I'd actually like to skip over number 5 and move forward a little bit in your book. In our discussion, we've talked about the stress and that sort of thing that the caregiver can experience. And then they list a whole bunch of signs of stress right here. All of us know when our bodies, or when we're experiencing too much stress. And again, the point that's trying to be made here is that, again, you want to, listen to yourself and realize that, in the process of providing care for somebody, if you're getting to the point where you're stressed out, you're burned out, you're overworked, that sort of thing, the scenarios we just discussed is designed to, make you aware of, hey, there's help out there. You need to ask for help. You may run into a situation where the first time you ask for help, there's going to be some resistance. But if you can kind of read into what the resistance is and come back around, again, your point in terms of asking questions, or explaining the situation, but ask some open-ended questions about, do you really know what mom needs right now, or dad needs, is a way to break the ice, engage in conversation with a family member primarily who may not be willing to help out initially, and it's oftentimes fear of the unknown. It's fear of not knowing what to do, making a mistake. I know that with what we do in providing home health care for clients, I don't necessarily like it, and we have clients that will pretty much say, you're with mom and dad more than we are. You're our eyes and ears. Tell us what to do. I don't necessarily want that responsibility. I mean, we will take it on and we'll report. But the other thing is, I'm going to err on the side of caution. I mean, if there's a symptom, a sniffle, or something that's out of the ordinary, we're not shy to call 911. We're not going to, when that responsibility is placed on us, we take it seriously, and we're gonna respond, and probably over-respond. But I'd rather do that than have an unfortunate situation. That's my own fear. That's our fear. And, asking a caregiver to help out, I don't want something to happen to Dad on my watch. So they'll duck and try to do, try to make excuses. But I mean, again, you start opening up the dialogue. I think the texting and emailing is great. I think that's a great way too. And even if you have a family member, that isn't in the loop in some way, put them in the loop by using technology. Send them a quick email. Dad had a great day. I mean, you should report the good news too. Dad had a great day. He did this, he did this. Today wasn't so great. Or, a couple days later, we're having this challenge, that challenge. I mean, every day it's kind of like the ads that we all get in our inbox, and that's a little bit overkill. But keeping family members involved by using technology, using text, email, that sort of thing, can also help break the ice to, something, he had a good day, he had a bad day, maybe I'll hit him on a good day, and, get somebody over as well. Getting help from the community, I'm on page 9 right now.
And just so you know, it's 1 o'clock, so if you have to
Is it 1 already?
Yeah, so
Yeah,
if
it's-
you have
okay.
to leave.
Yeah, if you need to go, actually wrapping up right here. Some of the other areas outside of your own family members, we talked about the clergy and the church. There are adult daycare centers who you can bring a loved one to. If you're caring for them at home. Obviously, there are short-term stay opportunities at